Shalom, shalom. Before I begin this lesson, I want to give all praise, honor, and the glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Racha HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles, bishop, and elders, a great millstone that rule well. And peace and blessing be multiplied on all you brethren that's teaching this word in all sincerity and in truth. All right, and shalom to the few Akwaf that's listening and learning in your proper place and silence in the background. A mighty shalom to you. All right, and shalom to the elect, 144,000, and the rest of the elect out there, shalom. I'm the brother Damal Gibar, here with another lesson, Lord willing to edify through the spirit and power of Yahweh by Yahweh Shai. And as we can see, Esau is getting ready to run another play as far as, these so-called disease X's and these, pestilences, which are, back in the headlines again, and they're gaining more momentum. And, because they're getting ready to gear you people for another lockdown, if they can pull it, which we know that this devil, is going to try to pull it. But as we always say, we're not ignorant to Satan's devices. But as you can see, this thing is back in the news. As we told you, these devils are not going to waste any time or any crisis to where they can use these situations to bring mass hysteria, to bring, confusion, fear, and ultimately any advantage to give them the upper hand over you people. That's going to lead you ultimately into this NWO. And as we can see here, now you got the Ebola is back on the airlines, is making his rounds again, as far as another virus that the people should be fearful and mindful about. And now they're talking about, look at this, right? It says, it's from the RT, it says, Ebola does not respect borders. So they're already putting that out there, showing you, look, the Ebola virus doesn't respect borders, basically telling you that, this Ebola, is not just going to stay in Africa. It doesn't respect borders. So, hey, it's willing to go any and everywhere where it needs to go. And hey, it can end up in Ebola doesn't respect borders, so it can end up in America. It's not just a so-called African, sickness. It could easily become a global sickness. Just as they just did with that Hunter virus, crap. How everybody that was on that ship, basically left the ship and went into all four directions, into all corners of the earth. So now you got people who have this, who was, in contact with the Hunter. They're in America, they're in Europe, they're in Africa, they're here, they're there, they're everywhere, and people were, allowed to roam and not be checked, not be vetted. And now it's been in the midst of all these countries, gaining momentum and spreading and whatever, but it just show you that these devils, man, hey, there's no level they won't go to push their agenda. And now we can see this back in the airwaves, whether it's fake or whether it's going to be manufactured. We know these devils are going to use this situation to their advantage, man. And like Bill Gates said, we believe the next one is going to get everybody's attention this time. Hey, and this might just be it, But hey, as we've been saying, you better believe this devil has his hands in this whole situation, man. So I just got this article and I got another article that I want to read, just showing you that, they're getting ready to run this play. Whether it's the Ebola or whether it's the Hunter. I even read the other articles where they was talking about all these different type of diseases got taken from the CDC, and that they were stolen and taken, and now who knows where they're at. So it's just showing you the play that these devils are about to run, and it's basically about having fear and to push fear and be able to use these situations to their advantage, man, because these devils are desperately in need of another lockdown. They desperately need to run this place so that they can bring in this digital ID, and they can use these sicknesses as they did with the last so-called pandemic that they used to keep everybody in their house, now they can be able to use this to track and trace. We need to see if every individual is not infected. So, they can start locking things down, going door to door, start forcing, you to have, more digital screenings and information upon you so they can, put you into this, just a way to, get you to digitally be identified, So anyways, It says President Cyril, let me read down here. It says South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has urged African countries to strengthen cross-border surveillance and cooperation to contain Ebola outbreaks in the DRC and Uganda, warning that the virus does not respect borders. That's supposed to be, a fucking bar, I guess. But, you got to pay attention to them saying that, because that's very critical and that's very important. That can be the slogan for the rest of the, for this Ebola virus and any other virus as these things spread, that they don't respect borders. So, it's not just Ebola. It's not just an African thing. It can be a global thing, and we all need to be safe. We all need to be protected. So we need to take these measures globally to make sure that everybody can be identified. Everybody can be screened and checked to make sure that they're not sick. We're doing this for your safety and to keep this situation from getting out of hand, which is all bullshit at the end of the day. Remember, they just want to be able to digitally identify and tag and ping and track everybody. And they'll use this goddamn situation just for that. And now this whole Ebola, right? Remember, before you just heard of Ebola. Now this is a particular Ebola strain. Here it is. Look, emergency over the spread of the Bundibugyo strain. It's always some type of strain, right? Everything has a strain. Everything has, here it is. You have one sickness, but it's multiple strains, and that's just kind of like how they can, keep this thing going for as long as they want. It's like creating a damn boogeyman. Not only is there a certain thing called an Ebola virus, but now the Ebola virus, it's mutated, it's spread. Now it has multiple different strains. You have the Bundibugyo, strain. Next, you're going to have the, whatever strain, and then this strain, and then that strain. And oh my God, it's so crazy. It's spreading. There's no, there's no antibiotics for it. It's just a way for them to create a permanent boogeyman to just, to continue to create fear amongst you people, man. And to use this to bring in this NWO, to lock you people down, to give them more ultimate control over everything, And it's just Esau running the same play over and over again, man. But let me read some of this shit. It says the Ramaphosa commended the governments of the Democratic Republic of the Congo in Uganda for their swift leadership and transparency in declaring the outbreaks following laboratory confirmation. It says early detection, rapid reporting, and decisive action remains critical to containing outbreaks before they escalate into a wider regional crisis. He said Africa stood in solidarity with the governments and people of both countries, particularly affected communities and frontline healthcare workers, while also praising neighboring countries that had moved quickly to strengthen preparedness, blah, blah, blah. Here's the point. It says Ramaphosa also commended the Africa Centers for Disease Control. I didn't even know they had an African CDC. But ultimately, who do we know ultimately runs and owns the CDC? Is these international bankers, these elites, man. The CDC is nothing more but a branch of the American one, but they have one in Africa. And why do they have that one in Africa? To do the bidding of the main headquarters, which is the CDC in America, which I think is in Atlanta, man. You see, and you better believe all their protocols and everything that they do is all in accordance with the WHO and these and these different companies that are basically ran by Esau Edom, man. So even these Africans and their CDC, was controlled by Esau, man, and they're gonna do whatever they're told by the main headquarters, which is the WHO. You see, so these Africans, so they're already on board. They're already going to do whatever the WHO tells them to do. Distancing. We need to lock down things. Oh, we need only essential workers. Remote this, remote that. Oh, we need to get everybody needs to be digitally identified and have their digital Ebola records. It needs to be uploaded, and we need to know digitally how this works. Same old bullshit. It says Ramaphosa also commended the African Centers for Disease Control and Prevention under the leadership of Director General Jean Kaseya, working together with the World Health Organization for providing rapid support to affected countries and coordinating a continental response. Yeah, you see. Ramaphosa also welcomed efforts by the national authorities, Africa CDC, the WHO, and partners to strengthen surveillance, laboratory systems, contact tracing, infection prevention and control, risk communication, case management, and access to medical countermeasures, you see? So everything that Africa is doing as far as this Ebola is concerned, is according to the who that, man, and according to the powers that be. So these guys in Africa, those Hamites are cooked over there, man. Because the more that this Ebola so-called gets out of control, hey, when it's time for them to bring in the measures necessary, Africa's going to do whatever the WHO tells them to do, man. And a lot of those Hamites going to be over there rolling up their sleeves, getting everything that they need in order to solve this so-called issue. You see? And a lot of this shit is being done intentionally, man. And you know where that Ebola virus came from. I ain't got to say. But as we know, these devils are going to use this as a means to bring in another lockdown, not only with this, but also the Hunter virus and whatever other scenario they're play they're going to run. But as we can see, man, hey, these devils are at it again. You see? What else is in here? Yeah. See? But like I said, it's just these devils running a whole nother play, man. They're getting ready to bring this shit out. Now you got the Ebola talking out there. Now look at this one from the People's Voice, right? It says the NIH virologist caught smuggling Congo Ebola pathogens into the U.S. just before WHO announced its deadly outbreak. You see? You think that's by coincidence? You think, that's just perfect timing? Yeah, because a lot of these things are being done intentionally, man. These devils want these type of situations to happen because it's going to ultimately help them to fulfill their agenda and be able to lock everything down and to get everybody involved in these digital identification. You see? It says top NIH Ebola researcher Vincent Munster, a longtime Fauci collaborator and head of high-risk virus work at Rocky Mountain Laboratories, was caught at the U.S. airport attempting to bring undeclared pathogen samples from the DRC into America without proper permits or documentation. You see? And this is how these things, happen, situations like this where things get smuggled across borders and they're coming in undocumented and, telling we know what they wanted to do with those samples when they brought them over here to the States, man. You see but this is how this devil operates. This is why this man can never be trusted and you can't put anything past this man. The fuck was that? It says the FBI is now investigating the shocking biosecurity breach while the mainstream media buries the scandal. The WHO has rushed to declare the Ebola Bundibugyo outbreak in the DRC and Uganda a public health emergency of international concern. You see? Because why? They want this thing to become a international situation because we know it's going to ultimately give them the leverage and the upper hand. More fear, more chaos. More lockdowns, more restrictions. The more they could, like I said, be able to roll out this, this digital ID system and to bring in this technocracy. It says officials report around 300 suspected cases, dozens confirmed, and at least 88 deaths, mostly in eastern DRC's Ituri province, while travel-linked spread into Uganda. The rare strain, see, there we go. This rare strain has no approved Vs or therapeutics, and it's exploding in a chaotic conflict near porous borders. See? That's why I read that other article where it says Ebola doesn't respect borders because they're already running the play. They're already telling you that, there was a lot of cases in Africa, and guess what? It's exploding in a chaotic zone near porous borders, meaning wide open borders. And like I said earlier, I saw another article that was saying that this same Ebola strain, you had so-called Americans that was in that area that are back in America. So it's the same fucking waggedy, whack-ass, bitch-ass play, See, but at the same time, even though they're running this play, we know it can be bullshit. They could still already have this shit here in America in those vials and in these different CDC centers where they can just release it, man. And then, they'll already have an excuse of how it spread here. And then they can just go forward with their agenda, man. Same old bullshit. Yeah, what does it say here? What it says, points towards a potentially much larger outbreak than what is currently being declared and reported, with significant local and regional risk of spread. However, unlike for Ebola Zaire strains, there are currently no approved Bundibugyo virus specific therapeutics or Vs, and such, this event is considered extraordinary. Yeah, you see? So they're already running the play. And I was trying to play this video, but it wouldn't let me play it because I don't have X. Laura Loomer, that crazy broad. See, the NIH is covering up a lab accident where a staffer was bitten by a monkey carrying the disease. You see, so you already have people saying that there's cases like this where a guy got bit, but the mainstream news media is not telling you, man. You know, it's kind of like it's right out of that scene of that movie. What movie? I was just watching that movie recently. What was it? I forget what movie it was, but basically they were like in Europe or something, and then they ran into the lab with all those affected monkeys and shit. What was it? Oh, I think it was the first what was that movie called, man? I think the first 28 days later or whatever. They show you in the beginning how, those little like what do you call them? They were like protesters. They wanted to go free the monkey because they was like, we're against the monkey testing. It's not right. So they went into the laboratory at night, and the doctor was like, don't release that monkey. They're highly infected with rage, and the monkeys and the girl end up trying to release the monkey, and it jumps and fucking eats her face, and it starts killing all the other guys in there. And that's how the whole 28 days later rage virus spread, So, hey, this is like a similar situation. A guy was bitten by a monkey carrying the disease, and eventually what that leads to, like script out of a fucking movie, man. But hey, these devils, they're willing to pull it. It says Munster and at least I got scriptures. I got a couple. I just want to get this information. It says Munster and at least one colleague were stopped with a protective case full of patient-derived pathogen samples collected in the DRC. They lacked the required permits for transporting these high-risk materials. The samples reportedly included monkeypox virus. A select agent, through questions, remain about what about other contents given Munster's deep work on Ebola and filoviruses in the exact regions now seeing this outbreak. See that? You see? These people are the damn devil, man. It says HHS referred to the case to the FBI, yet Munster and his wife, Emmy DeWitt, also an NIH Ebola coronavirus researchers, remain listed in directories with no immediate public firing. It says Munster's lab at Rocky Mountain Labs conducted BSL-4 research on the world's deadliest virus. He has extensive field experience in Africa studying bat virus, Ebola ecology, and emerging threats. Critics say this incident exposes the dangerous reality of research pipelines that ship samples across continents with sloppy oversight. Yeah, and that's being done intentionally. And it's that devil right here, the guy Munster, who came over with these diseases, It says, that timing should alarm every American. This smuggling bust happened right before the current Ebola Bundibugyo outbreak surged into international headlines. Now the WHO is sounding the global alarm on the very region Munster was operating in. Yet instead of full transparency from the NIH and the HHS, we're seeing the usual playbook: downplay, deflect, and memory hold the domestic failure while hyping the overseas crisis. You see? It says key questions the public deserves immediate answers are were any of the smuggled samples connected to strains circulating in the current outbreak zone? And how many other NIH-linked researchers are moving deadly pathogens into the U.S. without paperwork? Yeah, because they want a situation like this to go awry, man. And this is how these devils are going to use these things to spread these things. A lot of this shit is manufactured. A lot of it is not, diseases that just naturally occur in nature. A lot of these things are created in labs, and there's always some type of leak, or they'll release something, or whatever the case might be. I mean, we know that they're definitely not going to let these type of crises go to waste, man. Yep, this isn't isolated. It fits a disturbing pattern of gain-of-function experimentation, lab safety lapses, origin cover stories, and agencies that demand blind trust after years of proven deception. The same network that shaped the COVID response with Fauci holdovers is still embedded at the NIH and HHS, now face scrutiny. You see? It says Americans are right to ask whether public health research is actually making us safer or feeding a perpetual cycle of outbreaks, fear, and control. And that's what this shit is all about. This is what it's being used for outbreaks, fear, and control. And for them to be able to, for these companies to make billions of dollars, and meanwhile, giving you these shots that they'll tell you will protect you and make you safe. But when really, a lot of those shots are, hot, if you know what I mean. See what I'm saying? It says, yeah, we've seen this movie before. The question is whether anyone in power will finally face accountability before the next emergency locks us down again. Stay alert, the man answers. The official narrative is crumbling under the weight of his own contradictions. Right. And we know ultimately what these devils want to do with this shit, man. Same old playbook, same story, man. All right. This is Psalms 36:1. I read in the NLT. It says, sin whispers to the wicked deep within their hearts. They have no fear of the Most High at all. You see? And then, hey, this is why this man is known as the wicked and the damn devil that the Bible speaks of, because they would actually, use these things to destroy people, man, and to create a narrative for them to have more control, to bring more fear, lockdowns, and a way for them to establish this new world order. They're willing to take it that far to release something like this upon the world, man. And knowing good and goddamn well that the damage and the effects that it will have, but hey, as long as it fulfills their agenda, man. And they don't care how wicked and how much of an abomination it is. Like it says, there's no fear of the Most High before them. So this is why they move in such a manner. It says, in their blind conceit, they cannot see how wicked they really are, because in their eyes, what they're doing is not wicked. It's necessary, man. Hey, in the eyes of these international bankers and these elites, all of this wickedness that they're doing is justified. You see? It says everything they say is crooked and deceitful. They refuse to act wisely or to do good. You see? It says they lie awake at night, hatching sinful plots. Their actions are never good. They make no attempt to turn from evil. You see? It says, and this is the type of man that we're up against, man. And this is why they're doing the things that they're doing. And you can't be shocked or surprised that they're willing to go this far to do what they have to do, man. And they don't give a damn how many people have to get sent back to the spirit world in order for them to fill their new world order agenda, because in their eyes, the ends justify the means, man. You see, we already know that they feel that there's too many people on the planet Earth, and they know they just can't come outright and just, send people back. They have to do things like this, create these different type of pathogens and sicknesses and release it upon the public, and then act as if they didn't know where it came from and, how it got here. And then they'll go on this little fake research campaign and be like, oh, we found it in the jungle of China. The wrong bat, the wrong pig came across the wrong monkey or some bullshit like that. But at the same time, right, they're creating all of these different stuff with animal cells and different things of that nature, and then they give them to people. They shoot them inside of people, and then now people have these different animal DNA and different animal chromosomes within them. So this is why when they come across these diseases, that's not to where certain diseases can't cross from human to animal. Now, all of a sudden, you people that have that shit in you with those different animal cells and genes in you, now you can become now you can catch these viruses that's never known to go from human to animal now, because you have those animal things in you, and it's making you more highly contagious and more easily affected by these things that you normally wouldn't be, because now you have those cells and those different parts of those animals in you to make you contagious to this shit, man. See how wicked this man is? Completely a damn demon, man. Let me read that again. Verse 3, it says, everything they say is crooked and deceitful. They refuse to act wisely or do good. They lie awake at night, hatching sinful plots. Their actions are never good. They make no attempt to turn from their evil, man. You see? And this is Psalms 140:1. Deliver me, O Yahweh. I read it in the NLT. It says, O Yahweh, rescue me from evil people. Protect me from those who are violent, those who plot evil in their hearts and stir up trouble all day long. This is the damn devil, Esau, Edom. And this is where our prayers are towards the Most High, that he saves us and delivers us from the hand of this damn devil, from these plots, from these schemes, from these things that he's cooking up, from these things that he's releasing out here on the public, from his biological warfare, And not only that, his carnal warfare, his physical warfare, his, psychological operations, man. All of this man's wickedness. We're praying that the Lord rescues us from this damn devil, man. Slakia. It says, those who plot evil in their hearts and stir up trouble all day long. Their tongues sting like a snake. The venom of a viper drips from their lips. O Yahweh, keep me out of the hands of the wicked. Protect me from those who are violent, for they are plotting against me. The proud have set a trap to catch me. They have stretched out a net. They have placed traps all along the way. You see? And this is like one of the traps that they're setting by having these simple-minded virologists, smuggling these sicknesses across the United States and, sometimes also releasing them, man. Or you got that scenario with the monkey being bit, by a monkey that was infected with these diseases, but then the mainstream media stays silent. They don't tell anybody. Here it is, this guy will get bit, or these people who are working these facilities and get infected, and they don't say anything, man. They allow them to, go home and do whatever they got to do and then come back, or they'll just get one of these things and release it in the public, drop a vial, in some, in a river or in a lake or in the city or in a neighborhood. And then next thing you know, hey, this shit is out of control, man. But like I said, hey, this is why we're continuously praying to Yahweh Hashem Yahushua to deliver us from this violent, evil devil, man. But at the end of the day, hey, this devil, he's getting ready to run this other play. So don't be surprised if you start hearing now this new, what's it called? The damn Chickabayo, this shit called the fucking, the Bam Adebayo, the Bam Adebayo, strain. Yeah, the Bundy Bugyo strain. And how, it's going to be the same thing as the Hunter virus, the same play, the same scenario. But this time it's just, instead of coming from a ship, it's going to be coming from the land of Ham, man. But they're definitely going to run this play, man. Hey, don't be ignorant to Satan's devices and understand that, hey, this devil's trying to run another play, man. So, with that, hey, Lord willing, this is edifying. I'm going to give all praise, honor, glory to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. And to the next one, shalom.